Hi, you're watching 13th Whisper. The line between truth and terror is thinner than you think, and today we're going to cross it. Subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and share it with your friends. Some stories don't like being told. Let's begin. Hide and seek. The August night was stifling, the kind of humid Ohio heat that made your clothes stick to your skin. Willow Creek Asylum stood like a forgotten tomb on the edge of Millfield, a nowhere town surrounded by dense woods. Its cracked concrete walls and boarded-up windows seemed to pulse under the moonlight, as if the building itself were breathing. 5 college friends, Jake Miller, Emily Carter, Ryan Hayes, Sarah Brooks, and Tyler Reed, slipped through the rusted chain-link fence, their laughter cutting through the stillness. They weren't ghost hunters or adrenaline junkies, just 20-somethings tired of dive bars and Netflix marathons. Jake had floated the idea 2 nights ago at a campus party, his eyes glinting with mischief over a lukewarm beer. Let's hit the old asylum. Play hide and seek, like when we were kids, but make it epic. The others had piled on, egging each other into it, though each felt a quiet shiver, staring at the asylum's silhouette against the starry sky. Willow Creek Asylum was a sprawling labyrinth, 3 stories of endless corridors, patient rooms with peeling green paint, and rusted metal bed frames bolted to the floor. The air inside was thick with the stench of mildew and something sharper, like old blood or corroded iron. Ryan, the group's resident know-it-all, swept his flashlight across the lobby, illuminating a faded brass plaque. Willow Creek Psychiatric Hospital, established 1955. Closed in 92, he said, his voice echoing. Big scandal. Rumors about experiments, shock therapy, lobotomies, worse. They hushed it up, but people still talk. Emily, always quick to cut through Ryan's lectures, scoffed. Save the ghost stories, Rye. We're here to mess around, not make a podcast. But Sarah, the quietest of the 5, clutched her silver cross necklace, her eyes flickering to the shadows that seemed to shift just beyond the flashlight's beam. They set the rules in the lobby, their voices bouncing off the cracked tiles. One person seeks, the others hide. Tyler, broad-shouldered and loud, volunteered to go first. He thrived on being the loudest in any room. 10 minutes to find a spot, he said, cracking his knuckles. Then I hunt. I catch you. I tag you. Hard. You outlast me. You're untouchable. The others laughed, but the sound felt brittle, swallowed by the asylum's oppressive silence. Jake, with his trademark lopsided grin, nudged Emily. I'm picking a spot you'll never find. You'll be wandering till sunrise. She rolled her eyes, shoving him playfully. Keep dreaming, Miller. As Tyler started counting, eyes closed. 10, 9, 8. They scattered, their sneakers squeaking on the grimy floor. Emily darted up the main staircase to the 2nd floor, her flashlight bobbing. She slipped into a patient room and wedged herself into a narrow closet, the wooden panels rough against her back. The smell of dust made her nose itch, but she held still, listening. Ryan, more cautious, crept to the basement stairwell and crawled under the steps, curling up in the dark despite the damp, sour air. Sarah climbed to the 3rd floor, her heart pounding as she ducked behind an ancient X-ray machine in a cluttered medical room, its hulking shape casting jagged shadows. She tried to focus on her breathing, but every creak made her flinch. Jake, always the show-off, wanted a hideout no one would check. He sprinted down the 3rd floor hall, past rows of locked doors, until he spotted one marked Records Room. The knob turned easily, lock long broken, and he slipped inside, easing the door shut. The room was small, packed with rusted filing cabinets and stacks of moldy folders. The air was heavy with decay. Jake smirked, whispering to himself, "No way they're finding me here." Tyler's voice boomed from the lobby. "Ready or not, I'm coming." His heavy footsteps echoed as he prowled the first floor, his flashlight slicing through the dark. Emily froze in her closet, hearing him stomp past her room, muttering something about lame hiding spots. Ryan tensed under the basement stairs as Tyler's beam flickered above, grazing the gap where he hid. Sarah, crouched behind the X-ray machine, bit her lip when a loose shutter banged against a window, the sound like a gunshot in the quiet. Tyler was relentless, his taunts carrying through the halls. "Come on, you cowards, I know you're close." After 20 minutes, he found Emily. She yelped as he flung open the closet door, laughing. "One down, Carter." 10 minutes later, he spotted Ryan's sneaker poking out from under the stairs and dragged him out, both of them chuckling despite the growing unease. Sarah held out longer, but Tyler caught the glint of her necklace in his beam and crowed. "Gotcha, Brooks. 3 down, where's Miller?" Jake was a ghost. Tyler combed the second floor, then the third, shouting Jake's name, his tone shifting from cocky to irritated. "Dude, you win. Come out already." The others trailed behind, their flashlights darting nervously. An hour passed, and the joke stopped. Emily twisted a strand of her hair, her voice tight. "He wouldn't just ditch us, right? That's not Jake." Ryan shrugged, but his usual smirk was gone. "He's probably holed up somewhere, waiting to scare the crap out of us." Classic Jake. Sarah stayed silent, her knuckles white around her necklace. The asylum felt colder now, the shadows thicker. They decided to split up. Tyler and Emily searched the first floor and basement. Ryan and Sarah took the third. 1 hour. Ryan said, checking his phone. No signal, but the time read 1:17 a.m. "If he's still screwing around, we leave without him." On the third floor, Sarah stopped dead in a hallway lined with peeling wallpaper. "Ryan, wait," she whispered, her voice barely audible. He turned, frowning. "What?" She pointed into the dark. "I heard something. A voice." Ryan tilted his head, hearing only the faint groan of the building settling. "You're freaking yourself out," he said, but Sarah's eyes were wide. "No, it's him. It's Jake." Before he could argue, a faint sound reached them, like a sigh carried on the wind. "Guys, I'm here." Ryan's stomach twisted. "Jake, where you at, man?" he called. The voice answered, softer, from deeper in the hall. "This way. Records room." They moved faster, Ryan's flashlight shaking slightly. Sarah stayed close, her breath hitching. The voice called again, closer now. "Help me. I'm stuck." They reached the records room door, but the knob wouldn't budge. Ryan slammed his shoulder against it, cursing. "Jake, you in there? Say something." Nothing. Just the echo of their own breathing. Downstairs, Emily and Tyler were dealing with their own weirdness. It started with footsteps. Quick, uneven, like someone sprinting across the first floor. Tyler shouted, "Jake, cut the bullshit!" The steps stopped abruptly, replaced by a sound that made Emily's skin crawl. A low, choked laugh, like someone trying to stifle it. It wasn't Jake's laugh. His was loud, obnoxious. This was wrong. Too soft, too hungry. "That's not him," Emily said, grabbing Tyler's arm. His jaw clenched, but he stepped toward the sound, flashlight sweeping the hall. They followed it to the old cafeteria where rows of warped tables stood under a collapsed ceiling. The laugh came again, sharper, from a pile of moldy curtains in the corner. Tyler raised his flashlight, ready to charge, but Emily yanked him back. "Don't. Please, let's get Ryan and Sarah. For once, Tyler didn't argue. They turned and ran for the stairs, the laugh trailing them like a shadow. When the four regrouped in the lobby, the air felt charged, like before a storm. Sarah was trembling, her cross necklace swinging as she paced. Ryan's usual sarcasm was gone, his face tight. Emily kept checking over her shoulder, and Tyler gripped his flashlight like a club, his bravado fraying. "We heard him," Sarah said, her voice cracking. "Up in the records room, but the doors locked tight." Tyler's eyes narrowed. "That's impossible. I checked that room an hour ago. It was wide open." Ryan cut in, his voice low. "Something's off. We need to get in there. If he's hurt or trapped." They scrounged a dented crowbar from a janitor's closet in the basement and headed back to the third floor. The door splintered on the fifth swing, wood cracking like bones. The records room was empty. No Jake, no sign of his red backpack, his beat-up Converse, or the trucker hat he wore ironically. Just rows of cabinets, some tipped over, and piles of yellowed files spilling across the floor. Emily's flashlight caught something. A single folder lying in the center of the room like it had been placed there. She picked it up, her hands shaking. The cover read, "Patient number 47, Jacob A. Miller." Inside was a black and white photo. Jake, no question. Same sharp cheekbones, same crooked smirk. But the date stamped below it was 1978. "What the hell is this?" she whispered, passing it to Ryan. He flipped through the pages, his face going gray. It says he was admitted for delusions, killed himself in this room, hung himself from the ceiling vent. Sarah let out a small sob, backing toward the door. Tyler grabbed the file, scanning it, then threw it down. "This is some sick prank. Jake's fine, he's gotta be." Before anyone could answer, Sarah gasped, pointing to the corner. "There!" Ryan's flashlight swung over, nothing but dust motes swirling in the beam. But the room felt wrong, like the air was pressing down on them. "We're done," Tyler said, his voice sharp. "We're getting out." They stumbled into the hall, but their flashlights flickered, the beams dimming. Footsteps sounded behind them, fast, uneven, closer with every second. Emily spun around, heart in her throat, but the corridor was empty. The shadows on the walls moved against the light, stretching into shapes that weren't theirs. "Go!" Ryan yelled, and they tore down the stairs, their footsteps drowning out the ones chasing them. In the lobby, the front door, the one they'd jimmied open, was shut. Not just locked, but sealed. The edges fused like someone had run a blowtorch over it while they were upstairs. Tyler hammered it with the crowbar, the metal ringing but not budging. Sarah was crying now, her hands pressed to her ears. Emily tried to steady her, but her own hands shook. Ryan swept his flashlight across the lobby, catching glimpses of the halls beyond, where the footsteps hadn't stopped. "That's not Jake," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. "It's something else." As if on cue, the voice came again, the one they'd heard upstairs. "Guys, one more round. Come on." It wasn't Jake's anymore. It was deeper, jagged, like it was scraping up from somewhere broken. They backed toward the main staircase, their only plan to try the second-floor windows. But the asylum was changing. Hallways twisted in ways they hadn't before. Doors opened to rooms they didn't recognize. In one corridor, Emily glimpsed a figure, tall, hunched, its arms dangling too low, its head cocked at an impossible angle. It was gone when she blinked, but her chest tightened, her breath shallow. Tyler, leading the way, froze at a junction. "You seeing this shit?" His flashlight lit up a wall where words were carved into the plaster. "My turn to seek." The handwriting was Jake's. Sloppy, unmistakable. like the doodles he left on their study guides. Sarah whimpered, and Ryan grabbed her arm. "Keep moving. Don't look at it." The footsteps were relentless now, echoing from every direction. Sarah, near hysterics, begged to hide again. "If it's a game," she said, "maybe we just have to wait it out, like when we were kids." Ryan rounded on her. "You heard that voice, Sarah. That's no game. It's hunting us." But the sounds were closing in. Footsteps mixed with that awful laugh from the cafeteria. They had no choice. "Split up," Tyler said, his voice cracking. "Find a spot. Stay quiet. We regroup in 10. Emily wanted to argue, but the fear in his eyes stopped her. They scattered again, desperation driving them. Emily found a ventilation duct in a utility room and crawled inside, the metal cold against her palms. She pulled her knees to her chest, trying to silence her ragged breathing. Ryan ducked into a supply closet on the second floor, shoving himself behind a stack of moldy boxes, his flashlight off to avoid giving himself away. Sarah slipped into a patient room and slid under a bed, the springs creaking as she curled up, her cross necklace pressed to her lips. Tyler, stubborn as ever, refused to hide. He stood in the hallway, crowbar raised, muttering, "I'm not running from some ghost bullshit." His bravado didn't last. The air grew heavy, the shadows thicker, and then he screamed, a raw, guttural sound that cut off like a snapped wire. The silence that followed was worse. Emily, in the vent, heard something else. A scraping, like nails dragging along the metal behind her. Then breathing, slow, deliberate, getting closer. She clamped a hand over her mouth, tears stinging her eyes, as the sound slithered past and faded. Ryan, in the closet, felt the door shudder, like something was testing it. He braced his shoulder against it, his heart pounding so loud he was sure it would hear. Under the bed, Sarah saw shadows move across the floor. Not human, too long, too fluid, with eyes that glinted in the dark. She bit her fist to keep from screaming, praying it wouldn't look down. When Emily finally crawled out, she found Ryan staggering in the hallway, his face ashen. "It took Tyler," he said, his voice hollow. "I saw it, just for a second. It wasn't a person." Sarah stumbled in moments later, her shirt torn, her eyes wild. "It's everywhere," she whispered. "It knows where we are." The three of them clung to each other, their flashlights barely cutting through the dark. The voice came again, louder, sharper. "3 left. Who's next?" It seemed to come from the walls, the ceiling, their own skulls, vibrating in their bones. They pushed on, aiming for the second-floor windows, but the asylum fought them. Doors slammed shut before they could reach them. Corridors looped back on themselves. In one room, Emily found an old nurse's log, its pages brittle. She flipped it open, her hands trembling. Entries from the 70s described a patient, Jacob Miller, admitted for violent delusions. He'd claimed something in the asylum was playing with him, hiding in the walls, seeking him out. The final entry was scrawled in red ink. Patient deceased. Incident in records room. Containment failure. Emily dropped the book, her stomach churning. "Containment," she whispered. Ryan didn't answer, his eyes fixed on the door. They reached a therapy room with a cracked full-length mirror bolted to the wall. Emily glanced at it and froze. Jake's reflection stared back, standing behind them, his smirk wider than it should be. She spun around. Nothing. In the mirror, he raised a hand, pointing to a door across the room. "That's your way out," his voice said, cold as winter. Sarah took a step toward it, her face slack. "Maybe he's helping us." Ryan grabbed her. "Sarah, no. That's not him." But she was already moving, her hand on the knob. The door swung open, revealing only darkness. a black so deep it seemed to swallow the light. Sarah stepped through and was gone, the door slamming shut behind her. Emily lunged, pounding on it, but it was solid, unyielding. Ryan pulled her back, his voice breaking. "We can't. She's gone. Just the two of them now." The asylum seemed to shrink, the walls closing in, the air so thick it was hard to breathe. The voice was constant. Two little players. Not long now. Emily noticed her shadow moving wrong, lagging, twisting, like it had a mind of its own. Ryan saw it too, his eyes wide. But before he could speak, something yanked him backward into the dark. His flashlight hit the floor, spinning, its beam catching nothing but empty air. Emily was alone. She ran, her lungs burning, her flashlight flickering. Corridors blurred together until she stumbled into the lobby. The front door was still sealed, but now it bore names scratched deep into the metal. Jake Miller, Tyler Reed, Sarah Brooks, Ryan Hayes. Hers was missing. The voice whispered, so close she felt breath on her neck. "You won, Emily. But the game never ends." She turned, her scream caught in her throat. They were there. All four, standing in the shadows. Their faces were wrong, eyes too big, too black. Mouths stretched into smiles that split their cheeks. Jake stepped forward, his voice a hiss. "Your turn to seek." Emily bolted. The door was open now, impossibly, the welds gone. She tripped into the woods, branches clawing at her arms. The asylum loomed behind her, its windows like eyes watching her go. She ran until she hit Millfield's main road, collapsing in the glow of a streetlight. A passing trucker picked her up, his face creased with concern. "You okay, kid? What happened?" She couldn't answer, her voice locked away. Back in town, nothing was right. Her dorm room felt foreign. Her books weren't hers. Her photos showed people she didn't know. Classmates passed her without a glance, like she was a stranger. In her bathroom mirror, her reflection moved too slowly, its smile lingering after hers faded. She tried to leave Millfield, but every road seemed to curve back toward the asylum's shadow on the horizon. Weeks turned to months. Emily stopped sleeping, haunted by footsteps in her apartment, always just out of sight. One night she woke to find her bedroom wall covered in scratches. Hide better, Emily. She knew the truth now. The game wasn't over. Somewhere in Willow Creek Asylum, her friends were waiting, their voices calling from the dark, ready for her to seek them. And something else was waiting too, its laughter echoing in her dreams, counting down until it found her again. That's all for now. Thanks for listening, all the way to the end. If you enjoyed these stories, leave a like, subscribe, and share this with someone who still thinks horror is just fiction. The scariest things happen when you think it's all over. I'll see you very soon. And don't forget, check under the bed before you sleep.